Hello everybody, welcome back to Hidden Harvest with Liz. Today we're going to be doing our garden tour. This is the 22nd of May. I did have a previous garden tour that I shot, but I lost one of my hard drives and a lot of footage got lost in there. So I'm going to be reshooting this. And there's a couple of other videos that are already in the pipeline. So while I am missing a little bit, it's not really anything important. It was mostly how to trim certain things, how to do certain things, but we'll get to those because some of those things are like, you do them several times, not just one time in a garden. Let's go ahead and get on this tour because the sun is already coming up. I don't know if you guys can see it. This big tree that's over is on the east side of my garden, and as soon as it peeks over the top of that, the entire garden is going to get bathed in sunlight, and it is going to get hot fast. So let's run through this garden and see what everything is doing. First, we're going to start up here with the perennial beds and the berry beds. I'm going to skip the trees. I do have one thing to report on the trees. One of the pawpaws is in fact gone. That was my fault. There was an incident with a weed eater. By the time I got around the pawpaw trees with the weed eater, all the strength in my arms was gone, but I was bound and determined I was going to finish in one day. And I took the top off the smallest pawpaw tree. The one that I was happy was living. I don't think it's going to survive that. Let's do the tour. All right, first things first, we've got our perennial space. We've got our asparagus right here. It is definitely in the part where it's doing the fronds and it's just falling over. We still have a few that are coming up, but this is basically for these side over here. These are probably year 3 asparagus because I bought these as crowns. These are year 2 asparagus because I planted them from seed last year. So next year, this side of the bed, I'll be able to harvest from. This side has got at least one more year before I harvest anything, and probably 2 more years before I harvest heavily from this side. So this bed is still doing its job. It's ferning up. It's doing its things. Got some new ferns going on. Looks nice. I have got my sunchokes, which did in fact come up. As a matter of fact, they're coming up outside of the garden. I took that one off. It's already starting to grow back. But that's a lot of sunchokes. Okay, for those of you who've been around the channel or are from my gaming channel and coming over to my gardening content because I talk about it so much, those people who have transitioned over from the gaming channel probably already know that I am something of a prepper, not a huge prepper. I'm not like a build a bunker in my backyard, though I do think that would be fun, type of prepper, but I do plan to have things inside my yard that I can eat on for years, canned goods, stuff put back in case of storms, that kind of thing. Sunchokes are a very calorie-dense, nutrition-dense crop that people talk about all the time. They might be referred to as a sunchoke or a Jerusalem artichoke, or in most circles people call them fart chokes. And here's why. They cause a pretty decent amount of emotional distress, and I just saw a flower I haven't seen before in the yard. We're going to have to go look at that in just a second. But there is a serious amount of digestive distress when you eat a sunchoke, and I have tried cooking it, I have tried pickling it. The pickling of it tastes actually very good. The problem is my stomach hurt for like 4 days afterwards. So I'm going to say that despite content creators on YouTube constantly talking about this is something you should definitely grow in your yard, I would say even though it is probably something that would keep you alive, I would not plant a ton of them. I would get maybe a small bag of roots, get you a spot in your yard that has it established, and then just leave it alone. And make sure it can't propagate outside of that area because first off, it spreads very well, which is one good thing about it being a survival crop. It's kind of hard to kill it. I've actually taken it from that bed and planted it along my fence line because it's not just that it's a survival food, it also looks like, I don't know, almost like a Mexican sunflower, which is basically just like a little yellow flower. It's very pleasant. It's very tall. It's a nice flower, so I figured it would be good out there, and it gives me something that's in my yard. The name of the channel being Hidden Harvest, meaning I want to be able to hide harvest in my yard in case of whatever. So this is a good one for that. The problem is should we ever get to the point where it becomes necessary for me to eat that, I would have to hope that the survival scenario does not also include me being able to do anything besides hold my stomach and run to the bathroom for a couple of days, because while it would probably keep you alive, I don't think you would be very productive of an individual. So I'm going to have to say everybody pushing this as a survival crop probably have not actually tried eating it. Like I said, I still have it, and I still have it in my yard, and who knows, after I propagate it out this year, because I don't plan on keeping a harvest of it, I may offer it on a storefront or something in case people want to try growing it for a novelty or whatever. But that's been my warning so far. Let's move on with the flower I just saw. I have to go look at it. Hang on. I don't think I've ever seen this growing. I don't know what it is. It does look like a vine though. It's not necessarily on my property, but it's pretty close that if it was a flower that I wanted to get and it wasn't too invasive, I might consider coming over here and getting a cutting and rooting it out. I am looking for ideas on plants that I can put along my fence line. Okay, next on the tour, we have the strawberry bed, which I've stopped picking strawberries. They're looking very, very pitiful whenever they come out. They seem to rot very fast. I don't know if you guys can see those. They're pretty small. They're very patchy. Oh, there's some over there. I don't know if you guys can see all of that, but you know what? That one's got a bug problem right there, so I can still give that to the chickens. Oh, don't you do it, ma'am. There we go. You got you a taste? Okay. Okay, now they're going to spend like the next 15 minutes or so chasing each other for a little taste of it. I typically pass the food through the rooster and let him choose, which he doesn't usually choose one group of birds over the other. It's just more of he gives it to them, and it helps him feel included, because otherwise he's not actually going to get any of it. They'll eat it before he does. So in this way, he gets like a tiny little taste of whatever it is. We're back here with our strawberries. We've got our snapdragons, which have finally come in. They are the red and white. Like I said, I was cutting these guys down. This bed is a whole lot shorter. I don't know if you guys can see that one. I didn't actually point them out, but those ones over there are white snapdragons, and it's their turn to be cut down. There we go. You can actually see some of the blooms. These smell lovely, but I cut these guys down to size so they won't get too tall and flop over. They'll bloom back up, and then I'll start back down towards the end of the garden and do the same thing again. And I'll have to work my way back up to these, trim these down, and then go to these and trim these down. It's a cycle. And I have also got some of my walking onions in here. As you can see, they are flowering, they are bulbing, and soon, as you can tell, they're starting to lean, which means these bulbs are going to wind up somewhere in there and start up. As I talked about, actually, was it the last video that I shot or the last video that I uploaded? I have no idea. So I'm probably just going to be repeating myself because I don't remember what was on footage that I couldn't upload and what was on footage that I have released so far. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it again. I plan on moving my strawberries out of that bed. I don't like the way that they grow in that bed. I was thinking about getting me a green stock. Sadly, I missed the Mother's Day sale. I was not able to get me a green stock. I'm pretty sure I talked about that in the video that I shot already, but I missed that sale, so I'm going to have to wait probably for like a fall or something like that in order to get myself a green stock, and I'll be moving those guys into the green stock. And I'm thinking about turning this bed specifically into a garlic bed where I can put like my elephant garlics and stuff like that, because, well, I'll show you my elephant garlic in just a minute, but there are corms, which are like basically like the bulkiest seed you can possibly think of, that grows on the bottom of an elephant garlic. And typically when you pull the elephant garlic, the corm, or the seed of it, stays in the ground. If you plant the corm back in during the garlic season, it will bulb up, but it'll be one big bulb. And then the next year you take that one big bulb and you put it in the ground again, and it makes the big elephant garlic multi-bulb. And that's kind of how they become a perennial crop. And what I would like to do is establish a full bed of those right here, because so far out of what I've seen with my garlic, I'm not hugely impressed with a lot of varieties of garlic. I use garlic, it's just not like a mainstay and use tons of in my garden. we will be pulling garlic soon. So let's get over to that bed and start talking about the actual beds. We're going to start with the ones on the driver's side first, though. Let's do that. Well, driveway side. This is our driveway side for those of you who are wanting context about where everything is. This is my side driveway. That over there is my orchard. Along the outside fence line is some perennials. We'll get into talking about those whenever I get them fully established. Right now they're pretty small and hard to see past all the grass. We're still working on having our lawnmower fixed. Thankfully the starter should be in today, so hopefully this weekend the yard can finally get cut again. It has been forever. Along this fence line we have the gauntlet. Let's actually go take a peek at the gauntlet. I haven't done that yet. The results of the gauntlet, I'm going to say all but maybe one is an indeterminate. I am seeing a fruit over here. This could be either a paste tomato, maybe a super sauce. That one too. Should be interesting. Who knows? Maybe all the super sauce ones that I grew, maybe all of them did grow, they just took longer to germinate. Those look like they're going to be the same type. Yeah, so far it looks like everything is alive. Let me see if I can find... Okay, there it is, there it is. The tomato that I pulled off of the trellis whenever I was talking about knowing when to let a plant go, it is still in here and it has not grown at all. Now you might be telling yourself, but it's surrounded by tomatoes now, so it's probably not going to grow. But it literally, even when it was the height of the rest of these, didn't grow any. It was fully stunted and I'm glad I pulled it. So, let's see, the one that I planted on the end that was also stunted, it did in fact grow. It's just growing slower than the others. So all in all, I'm going to say this is where all the first planting of my paste tomatoes probably went. Those are circular back there. Those... Yeah, these are circular. These might be a bush stake. I don't know what this is, but it looks like it's going to wind up being an indeterminate. But yeah, that's how the gauntlet's going. And if you're wondering why I'm doing that with my tomatoes, I'll post a video right over there in the corner, editing Liz, if you don't mind. Long story short, a whole lot of tomatoes didn't germinate, and then suddenly they did in a place where other things were supposed to be germinating, peppers. So I didn't know what they were, and I needed a place to put them, so instead of throwing them out, I put them over there. Back to establishing where we're at in the yard. We've got the side driveway, we've got our orchard. The outside line will eventually go all the way around the garden. We've got our driveway side beds, the main garden, the chicken coop, what will eventually be a usable greenhouse. This is not. On the other side, we have got our blackberries, thornless blackberries. As you can see, they're starting to turn red. And this is the raspberries. They are still producing. You can see a few of them on there. I have already gotten 2.5 gallons worth of raspberries off of this. And as you can see, this plant is all over here. So I'm going to be pulling all of these up and planting them on the other side and extending this out, probably to a double line of what this is. When I started these, this was 4 plants. This was 2 plants. And I didn't think we would have very many raspberries or want very many raspberries, but if they're going to be this prolific, I might as well get some of these and plant them over there. There's my compost that has artichokes growing out of it. Fun. My broken greenhouse, I don't know if you can actually see the holes that are in the top of it. This thing lasted for 1 year. I do not recommend these greenhouses. And then my perennial space, which I forgot this bed. Let me go ahead and pop over here to this bed. We've got our blueberries, only 1 produced this year. I was able to get a few blueberries off of it. I think it's time for this thing to come off though. I got a few blueberries. These are taking a long time and that fabric is starting to burn the leaves. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and take it off of there. If the birds get those, that's fine. I got a couple of them. This is my oregano and my sage. And this is the flower that I don't know what the name of it is. I need to write it down, but it was gifted to me. It's also right there and in between on the other side, and eventually my fountain will get fixed. I want to get a solar on this one so that it'll just run all the time. That'll eventually happen. This is a wild scuppling vine that I found. I'm thinking about trying to place it in the yard and see if I can get it to see if it will produce scuplins. I'm not sure if a wild one will actually produce edible ones or not. I have no idea. Back to the garden, because we are focused today. Yes. First bed. I think that's like the third time I've said that and haven't actually shown you what was in the bed. Right here we have got a Seminole pumpkin. Yay, pumpkins are coming in. So, we have a Seminole pumpkin. I fully expect this guy to go all over here. So I gave it plenty of room. There's no trellising system or whatever. I fully expect this one to go along the ground. This is where I had my wood chip pile. And while I would love to be able to scrape all that up, I don't see that happening. I'm still pulling some of the wood chips out and using them, but for the most part it's fully compressed and unusable. So this will get plenty of nutrition from the wood pile itself anyway. I have got the leftover of my sweet onions. Now these were intentionally planted very close together so I could get some like little pearl onions, and as you can see, they are indeed bulbing up. And whenever the other beds are harvestable, I will likely go ahead and pull these as well and allow that thing to fully take over the bed. This right here is my perennial walking onions, same as the ones that I've got over there, and I do intend to move more of these into the garden itself to allow these guys to be all over the garden, because onions are a deterrent to a lot of pests, and I have rabbits that come out from over there. Every couple of days I'll see them, and they're checking out my garden. But they do not like the smell of onions, they do not like the smell of my dogs, and I think there's marigolds or something else that they don't like the smell of. I'm not 100% sure, but it might have been dandelions or something. I can't remember. I'll go back to doing research on that. Hopefully we can get our fence in as quickly as possible. I won't have to worry about the rabbits as much, but back to the garden again. These guys are also in the process of walking. These are this year established beds, and they were thrown together maybe 2 days before I planted these in. And the stuff that this stuff is planted into, aside from weeds, this stuff is actually only partially dirt. I put a layer of wood chips, a layer of dirt, a layer of wood chips, a layer of dirt, and a layer of wood chips, because I still had a whole bunch of wood chips left over and not a whole lot of dirt. So chances are there's going to be a nutrition blockage on these particular beds. The nitrogen is going to get tied up while it's trying to break down the wood chips. It's probably going to happen across all of the beds on this section because they were all made the same way. But once they break down enough, there's going to be an influx of nitrogen, and these guys are going to do great. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for this bed to digest all of the wood, but it will eventually happen, and this bed will do great. These guys will proliferate in here, and it'll give me a chance to move some to other sections. All right, next bed. Okay, these are perennial flowers. We've got the butterfly weed. We've got calendulas here. I think they're calendulas. It's either that or echinaceas. I'm pretty sure it's calendulas that are here. This one and this one I don't actually remember the names of. I have them written down inside the house. If I think about it, I'll put them in. I'm not sure that I will think about it, but these guys, whenever they start sprouting, they sprouted up in groups, and this one over here did not sprout, so I will likely take either that or one or two of these and move it over there, so there'll be a line here, and then this one, the other side didn't come up, so it's either that or something ate it. Something might have ate it, maybe. Anyway, this is a work in progress. And then here we have got our medicinal herbs. We've got hyssop, lavender, feverfew, which I have been getting some flowers from. They're already starting to come in. They're cute flowers. And then I've got yarrow, calendula, rosemary, and marshmallow over here in the corner. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like it's doing an offshoot, which is kind of interesting. Now, if I'm not mistaken, marshmallow grows pretty prolifically. I'm not 100%. I don't think this particular plant is going to be the place where this stays, but this is the only one that sprouted, and I needed to put it in the ground. So this is where it wound up, along with all of these other plants. So these are my amaranth, and it's several different types. It's Love Lies Bleeding, the something biscuit, and one of the other ones. I don't remember all of the names. And these are a hybrid of all of the ones that I grew anyway. These are the actual seeds that I grew from the plants that were over there last year. I just kind of crumbled them up and stuck them in this bed. And they are in here way too thick. So they are kind of a trap crop. If you can see, there's holes all in them. These are not necessarily going to be a good grain, but they are keeping this pest pressure at bay. They are staying over here. I noticed this last year, that these particular plants got ate up by something. I'm not really sure what. After these guys finally got pulled, they were done. The bed started getting a whole lot more pest pressure. So I figure these guys are a good trap crop. Sadly, I won't be able to use the seed again because it's probably not going to go to seed. A couple of them might. I doubt it. But we'll see how it goes. And then I did the same thing over here for yet another trap crop. This one for the leaf-footed bug, hopefully, which is basically the squash bug. Some sort of a hybrid seed from the ones that I grew a couple of years ago, mixed in with what I grew last year. And I just crumbled them up in the bed and let them grow. I thinned them a little bit so they're a little bit taller. These guys, on the other hand, the ones that fell outside and grew, awesome, first off. Secondly, they are probably going to get a whole lot bigger. And hopefully, this particular bed, I will be able to put a permanent spot where I can just completely deposit any sunflowers that grow into this bed and let them grow back the next year. And just not have to worry about this bed at all. All right, moving on with the rest of the garden. There's so much to show you guys. This is going to be like an hour-long video. I hope you guys packed a snack. Bed number 1, we've got all of our garlic, which is on its way out the door. As you can see, we've got some dieback going on. We are at our first one here, 2 here, about 3 there. As soon as you get about, I don't know, half the stem, I would say probably back to here. Once we get to here, these guys are going to come out of the ground. We have already done the cutting off of our scapes. Those guys are gone for the ones that were going to use it. I think 1 or 2 of them were surprisingly scapeless. I don't know. But it's about time for these guys to come out of the bed. These guys here at the end were actually crumbs from my previous elephant garlic. And these are going to be my bulbs for next year. And these are my leftovers from last year's garden. This is a type that I ordered, some fresh kinds. They didn't do so great. And look, some of them are actually falling over. I got that tiny, disappointing bulb, but it is food, so it's fine. We did recently have a storm. Not that that's the reason for this disappointing bulb, but it is the reason why the bulb is going to have to come out along with anything else. Plus, this massive plant that took over the bed. Let's walk around the other side. This is Malabar spinach right here. It's starting to make its way up here. It's gotten up to this section. It's really beautiful. I got it growing on both sides, but we'll get to that side in a second. I have got a volunteer tomato here. I'm going to point with everything with my garlic. I hope you guys can tell what it is I'm pointing at with the 5,000 strings. And then I have got I would say this is probably an Everglades, but I'm not 100% sure what I put here. I'm going to have to look back through my notes. I know I wrote it down and I recorded it. And the reason why I say I don't know if it's an Everglades is because some of these look multifaciated, which is basically when a flower, I don't want to break it because it might actually turn into something cool, but it's basically when a flower grows into a couple of different flowers. This feels like, I don't know, 2 or 3 flowers that grew together and are going to turn into one tomato. So I don't think that that's usual of an Everglades, and these are some slightly bigger flowers. Typically, if you're going to get a cherry tomato, they're about this size. They're a bit bigger than that, so this one might have been a mislabeled tomato. If you want to know how my tomatoes got mislabeled, I'll let you go back and watch some previous videos. It was an entire saga. We have a bee. There we go. Okay. My garlic bed has kind of been taken over by all of the borage. I'm not sure who actually ordered the borage. They shipped it here and stuck it straight into my bed without telling me. So here it is. Get in touch with Amazon and say they delivered it to the wrong place. It's here. It has been located. It's taken over most of my elephant garlic. And whenever I go to pull all of my garlic, these guys will inevitably have to go too, sadly. But they are very gorgeous and my chickens love them. So I've been slowly, as they flop over, I've been cutting them out and giving them to the chickens. So if you happen to have volunteer borage, which it does volunteer readily, I didn't plant any in the garden at all this year and I've got it all over the place. It's an awesome plant. Plus, these blooms right here are edible. The bees love them. It's also a bit of a trap crop. I've got some aphids, some ants doing some aphid farming over there, and I am perfectly okay with them aphid farming off of here instead of one of my other plants. I have also got some, I don't know if you guys can see that, and I don't want to mess with it, but there is a wasp, which is actually a predatory wasp, which is really good for the garden that was climbing back here. Anyway, the point being is these guys are awesome, and I don't want to cut them down because these guys are bringing in my pollinators. This place is covered in bees right now. It is completely covered in bees. I'm sorry, I lost track of my camera. I was studying bees. Okay, I'm gonna leave these guys alone before I chase them off. I don't want to chase them off. But yeah, they're all over this, and I love the fact that the bees are in the garden because bees have had such a bad year. I mean, bees have had a terrible year this year. So I'm gonna leave these guys alone. This is the garlic bed, and like I said, it is on its way out. There is dieback in several places, and the bed has been taken over as per the usual whenever things start establishing themselves. Let's go on to the bed back behind it, which is our hot pepper bed. And there are random things. As you can tell, I never got the cages on my tomatoes. I don't know what I'm going to do. That one over there is leaning. I can tell that. I need to come back here and strap it back up right. I don't know if now is too late because I have limbs that are growing out, and if I was to try and put a cage on them, I would probably wind up breaking the limbs at this point. So I'm not sure 100% what I'm going to do. I'm thinking about taking a pole and putting it here and doing like a Florida weave on all of them. I'm not 100% sure. But I do have a pole down here, so it wouldn't be that hard. It's a possibility. Anyway, onto these. We have got all of our hot peppers and this, which is cilantro. I don't know how this happened, but apparently one of my cilantro seeds from me trying to grow cilantro wound up inside this, which is not even a pepper I started from seed. This is a transfer into this. This is the ghost pepper. This cilantro has survived. None of the other cilantro that I have tried to grow this year has grown at all. None of it. As a matter of fact, because this has been such a pesky year for cilantro, I'm going to cut that out. Now, I hate the fact that this is growing so close to this other plant, but somehow or another, it being this close to this plant has kept this one alive. I don't understand this mechanic. If anybody else has seen this kind of situation happen before, let me know, because typically this plant would be dead. In this time of year, cilantro always bolts. It does not last. If you plant it in the ground during the season in our area, it will stay like this for like a week and then bolt, which is go to flower. So somehow or another, it being mixed in with all of these plants, plus the shade from this here, maybe it blocking the western sun has helped this guy stay alive. I'm not really sure. This is a very odd thing, and if I find that this cilantro lasts for a long time, this might be something that I try again next year, is to plant a pepper, maybe specifically a hot pepper, and a cilantro into the same thing, and then just leave them be, you know? Because the roots are not on top of each other. Here's the cilantro, and over there is the pepper. But them being in close proximity has helped this plant. Like I said, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's a possibility of being able to do this in more places because I love me some cilantro. So let's move on. We have got our basil. We've got another borage. It's like off the side of the thing. And there's another borage off the side of the thing. I'm not sure what to tell you on that one. It just keeps taking off. And then we have got serrano pepper, serrano, ghost pepper, cayenne, jalapeno, and another, which one is this? Cayenne. Now over here, I'm supposed to have some little flowers coming in. I've got some alyssum planted here. I don't think this is a plant that I planted here. I think this is a weed that's trying to sneak in where I planted some alyssum. But I'm going to leave it alone for now. I know this is a weed. We'll just leave it alone. There's some weeds back there too. Stuff just needs to be pulled or whatever. I'll eventually get to it. We've got an Everglades, which of course is already producing some tiny, tiny little tomatoes. And then we've got the Tamando, which has got 1 or 2 fruits on it. I don't know if you guys can see that. We got a couple of fruits over there. And getting a lot of structure. I'm getting a lot of foliage growth right here. And a lot of foliage growth on these guys. These guys are always, like I said, already starting to put on. I don't know what I'm going to do about that one. I need to do something with it or the whole plant's going to fall over. Okay, anyway. I've got a whole lot of plant growth and I've got some tomatoes going on. I'm kind of concerned that this means that there's a lot of nitrogen in the bed, which there may well be. But at the same time, they're fruiting. The fruit set is working very well. I'm just going to let it ride. As a matter of fact, I just realized I was supposed to be watering the garden. And even though the ground looks a bit wet, I know that the rain didn't go into the garden very well, so I'm going to go ahead and get the water started while I'm doing the tour. Okay, we're back. I needed to stop and feed the chickens. They were following me around, and I need to go grab me something to drink. Just a bit of water inside a nice cozy cup, so I don't spill it all over myself while I'm in the middle of doing things. So, where were we? Let's get back to the garden, shall we? In our next bed, we have got a whole bunch of paste tomatoes. I think these are our super sauce tomatoes. I've got one that's trying to take out my echinacea. Well, let me actually put the camera where it belongs. I've got one tomato that's trying to bombard the echinacea, but if you look, I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Let me see if I can zoom in so I don't accidentally... It's a bit grainy. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but there is some predatory insects sitting up there, playing around on the echinacea, which is nice. That's what they're supposed to be for. This is a medicinal herb, but I have not collected it for medicinal purposes. This is its 2nd year. I didn't even know what it was. I just planted here remembering that there were some perennial flowers that didn't produce last year. This was one of them. So we finally know what that looks like. There is a basil that is back behind it. I'm not sure if you can actually see it. It's there though. I have another Seminole pumpkin. Now I've got 2 summer squashes that are planted here. One that was a start, one that was planted in ground and took a long time to get going. As you can see how slow it is. I'm glad I did starts. Not that a whole lot of starts have survived this year, but typically I have a big problem with squash vine borer and squash bug getting into my squash, which is the reason why I planted a Seminole pumpkin in here. This guy is very resistant to a squash vine borer and stuff like that, mostly because of how it grows. It grows along a vine and then replants itself along the vine. But I'm hoping as a deterrent with so much of this growing, it'll help protect that for longer. And then up here we have got our Mr. Stripies, which are a big yellow slicing tomato. And that's both of these. And we do have a little bit of fruit set going on down here on the bottoms. None of them are too terribly big and none of them have started blushing yet. Though on the other side, right down here, which is a yellow cherry tomato, I have already gotten just one, off of this cherry tomato and already like it better than the other cherry tomatoes I grew last year. But we'll get back to this bed. In this bed, we have our bell peppers. Lots and lots of bell peppers. I use a ton of bell peppers in my cooking. I like making my own paprika. There is an alyssum right there in the middle of the garden. We've got our paste tomatoes as per the usual. I forgot to put the cages on them. We have got some parsley that has gone to seed. Should be interesting to see what these flowers look like as they get a whole lot bigger. Then we have also got a celery that was doing just fine until the big storm hit and knocked it over. But it is still going to seed and I'm going to continue to let it. I really want the seeds from this garden this year because these guys have survived. These guys have survived. As a matter of fact, these guys are trying to come back. There's some interesting bug activity on them as well. I don't know what kind of bug that is, but I'm really hoping to save a whole bunch of seeds from some of these plants. I have got, I'm thinking this is another Echinacea back here, but this one seems to be a yellow variety, because if you can see way down there at the base, there is a flower down there. It's a really weird plant in general. I did move it like 3 times, so it's got reasons for having issues. It has stressors. Then we got our paste tomatoes, like I said, our bell peppers, our poblanos, which, hang on, I just saw this monstrosity growing in here. Let me see it. Let me see it. We have our first one. Now I've got a lot of bug activity around my peppers. I'll show you some other peppers in just a minute. But they've been putting holes in them, and I'm like, you know what? You take a little bite out of it, I'm still going to eat it. So even if they put a hole in it, I'm going to open it up and check to see if the plant is okay. And if for the most part it's okay and it's not gross on the inside, I'm still going to harvest. I've got some alyssum right here. These are all of our bell peppers. They are all recovering after having been topped and are starting to put on a flower set. And then at the end of this bed, I've got our pink tomatoes. They grew so well last year. I do not... Oh, yep, I do. I do see fruit right there. And then this is one of my snapdragons. It's got like a sunset coloration. It's already got its flowers back on. It's starting to produce a whole lot of flowers. And in this final bed right here are my sweet onions. Even after the crazy onion ordeal of 2024, 2025, we have got some monstrosities growing back here, dude. Hold on, let me show you. Bam! Look at the size of that tomato. Not tomato, yes. Do not be insulted, please. This onion. You are definitely an onion. Anyway, we have got some pretty decent growth on these, and these guys are not even flopping over, I would assume, because right across the road is this tall tree. Which means it's going to take longer for this bed to reach its full day of sun, and giving more time for these guys to bulb up, which I'm okay with, because they got planted so late. Look at the size of those guys, though. They are looking good. That one right there, huge. I mean, there are a couple of small ones that didn't actually head up, but I'm okay with that. We are going to have plenty of onions. Plenty of onions. And then we have got our asparagus bean, which does seem to finally be taking off. I'm relieved, because I was starting to wonder about these guys. They were having some sort of an issue right here. I don't know what this is, but I was concerned that maybe there was some sort of a disease, but they seem to be, I'm not going to touch these upper flowers, they seem to be growing out of it. Whatever this is, might be a soil-borne fungus or something like that brought up by the ants. And some of this higher stuff looks to be fine. So I'm completely okay with just letting them grow out of it. Should be interesting to see what these guys are like. Like I said, I haven't found a green bean that I grow in my yard that I'm hugely fond of, so we'll see how these guys are. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, in this first bed, we have got, that thing is just, that's the Malabar spinach over here in the corner. We have got 2 tomatoes. I think these guys are the Everglades tomatoes, if I'm not mistaken. These guys are a little bit bigger than the Everglades as far as I know. Maybe Everglades are a bit bigger than I thought they were going to be, but these are like plum size. It's not bad though. I'm not going to fuss if that's what they are. I haven't grown these guys before. Here we are with the red onions, and as you can see, these guys are already starting to lay down. As soon as about half this bed is laying down like this, I will go ahead and start pulling them. We've got some pretty decent bulbs on a couple of them. Some of them are still rather small, and we've got one weirdo over here. Hang on. What is that? I don't understand. There's like 6 bulbs in here. I don't know what it's doing. We do have quite a few bulbs in here. Red onions are not necessarily our favorite type of onion. The sweet onion is. But there are a few applications that we like to use these guys for. So this is going to be a pretty good harvest. Inside these end beds, 2 of them anyway, I have got sweet potatoes in here. And it's just like the whole sweet potato stuck inside the dirt. The only thing I want are the vines off of it so I can give it to the chickens. This is eventually going to be yet another chicken snack. As soon as they get big enough to make it worth giving to the chickens. Here at the end of the bed is another borage plant. Another one. I didn't plant that either. Though these guys being at the ends of my beds, I'm not upset about. I might intentionally do this later on. Over here, I do have another sage. I've got an idea for this wall right here. I haven't quite enacted it. It will eventually happen, but I'm going to make a step-up planter, kind of like with cinder blocks or whatever, to kind of hide this long wall and to give this wall a little bit more insulation and to get a little bit more growing space. So that'll be a lower level, or it'll be transplanted or whatever. It's a work in progress. I just had that idea this year. It will get enacted later. Okay, these are the Everglades, which means these are probably not Everglades on this side. I'm not sure what this is. I know I have it in my notes, but I don't currently have it in my head. If these are Everglades, I know one of those is an Everglade and one of those is a Tamando, so it's probably an Everglade and a Tamando over here as well. Then I've got some more paste tomatoes. I've got another Seminole pumpkin. Hold on, I'm trying to make sure you guys can actually see what I'm pointing at. A Seminole pumpkin, and then I've got my first round of cucumbers, which are starting to produce. You can see the baby cucumbers. I'm pulling these guys off extra early and getting like some little bitty cucumbers. The only thing I'm concerned about this year is making my own relish because it's got so many applications. I like pickles. I don't have a problem with pickles, love pickles, but I use relish in so much stuff. So that's my concern this year, is having a stockpile of relish by the end of this. And I want to make sure these plants go for as long as possible. So I don't want any of these cucumbers maturing on me when I'm not paying attention. I'm keeping an eye out. I have also got my opal basil. I have got another snapdragon. More borage. I did not plant this one either, and it got blown over by a storm, and it is currently covering an onion and a garlic and some butterfly weed. And it's sitting on top of more chicken snacks, which is some more of the sweet potato vines. Back behind this bed, let me get on the other side so it's easier to see. Really, really bad looking, which is perfect. Today is the 22nd. Exactly 100 days ago, I planted these potatoes. They are actually ready to come out of the ground. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull this weekend or if I'm going to push it one more week, because I've got two different varieties in here. And the varieties are between 90 and 100 days. And one can go as long as 120 days before maturity. Unless I got some weeds growing up in there. So if I wanted to, I could give them a couple of extra days, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these this weekend, which will wind up being a separate video. This is perfect for this time of year. And as soon as these guys come out, in about 1 week after I get the bed mixed up, put some mulch on it, sprinkle in some amendments and get it all sorted and everything, the sweet potatoes will also go in this bed. I like to plant my regular potatoes followed by my sweet potatoes because regular potatoes require a ton of nutrition, and then sweet potatoes don't like a lot of nutrition. So following one after the other means that this bed is pretty much kind of depleted, and I will put some amendments in here, but for the most part, this bed has got the right amount. These guys come out about the time my sweet potatoes should be going in. It is actually to the point where we're almost into summer, very close to summer. So we're in the high heat, which is when our sweet potatoes actually need to go into the ground. So these guys go out in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how long it takes for those guys to get here. My sweet potatoes will be going into the same bed. Then we have got our yellow cherry tomatoes in this bed right behind it. We've got another snapdragon. It's the multicolored snapdragon. We've got our Cherokee purples that are back here. We do have a bit of fruit set right there, which would be awesome because this will be the first time I've actually tried a Cherokee purple. I've heard really good things about it. And then of course we've got our customary paste tomatoes in the back, the sweet banana pepper, and then we've got like a carbonello, we've got a lunchbox orange, we've got a whole kinds of different little, I don't know, odd bell peppers, plus my overwintered bell pepper and my mini overwintered bell pepper here. And then the natapeño is over here as well. And we have already been pulling stuff from this bed. I have already got another natapeño or two. Hang on, wait, there's that big one. We got a natapeño right there. I just pulled the bell pepper yesterday. We got a lunchbox orange growing right here. The orange bell, which is basically just a bell pepper. It's just a bell pepper. It's just going to stay on there a little bit longer or whatever. But basically all of these guys, they have fully recovered from topping. They are fully growing up. These guys were planted before and out quite a bit healthier, I guess. My other bell peppers, those guys over there are a lot shorter than these guys. I'm not 100% sure why that is. That one, and that one are from last year. These guys right here are from this year, bought and planted at the same time, topped about the same time and everything. A couple of those were topped later because they weren't tall enough. I usually like to top my peppers once they reach about, 6 inches in height. And I don't want to top one after that because I feel like it stunts it too much. So those guys got topped a little bit later. I had to wait for them to grow a little bit more. But that bed seems to be taking off a little bit slower. And it might be how I chopped and dropped some of the things that are in that bed. We'll just see. In this next bed, I have got a Seminole pumpkin right there. I know it's an odd place for it. I have got my roselles here. I'm slowly in the process of moving my roselles because I realized I was not really giving them enough room. And at first, I was going to leave 3 of them here and give them better spacing and take these 2 guys and move them into the onion bed after the onion bed was done. But I realized because that tree is slowing them down, which I'm okay with because we're getting bigger bulbs, I don't think it's going to be a good idea to wait that long to move these guys out. So I'm slowly adjusting this. I didn't want to, as you can see where I had them planted before, not very good spacing. I didn't want to kill all of my roselle by transplanting them. So I waited. All of the roselles, well, all but one, that one doesn't need to be moved. These guys need to be moved, and these guys needed to be moved. So it's like I'll move 2, let these guys recover, then I'll move another one into the center. I'll wait until it recovers, and then I'll move the other one, just to be sure that I don't lose all of them at the same time, because that would suck. Okay, and then over here we have a pink Brandywine. We've got the Black Prince. All of these guys are already starting to produce fruit over here. Some decent sized fruit. We had a really big tomato over here, but trying to adjust it so it wouldn't go inside the fencing made it fall off of the tree, yes, vine. And it's now sitting on my counter. We'll probably have a fried green tomato here shortly. But so far, these guys are doing good, and they are, for an indeterminate, these guys seem denser. I'm not sure exactly how to describe that, but these guys seem dense, which I do like. But it does mean I will likely have to trim these guys a little bit more than I do the others. On this other side, I have my basil, I have my onions that I'm allowing to go to seed. These are some evergreen onions. And I do have 2 full blooms. So I'm hoping I have enough, but at the same time, I'm not anxious to pull these guys out. As I said, these guys are a repellent crop for a lot of pests and animals, so I like leaving these guys here, and I didn't plant any more. So after those guys come out and these guys finally finish, I don't have any onions on this end of the bed, which is a bit of a problem, and I probably need to get that sorted. But we have the basil, we have our roselles, we've got a whole bunch of everglades. They are everywhere. And there's a whole lot of fruit set going on. I have a feeling I overplanted the trellises, but that's fine. It's all about learning and growing and figuring things out. So I will know for next year that the everglades need a bit more room and only 2 per trellis, most likely. This guy over here, I am 99% sure that's a cantaloupe. I would love to say that I'm 100% sure, but at this point, between the cantaloupe and my loofahs and a couple of other musquashes, they've kind of gotten mixed up and moved around because they've taken so long to sprout and take off that I'm not 100% sure anymore. But I'm pretty sure that's a cantaloupe. And then on the other side, I have got my lemon balm, which is taking off. It is huge. This is after 2 full harvests, maybe 2 more harvests, and then I'll completely let it go. And somehow or another, I don't even know how because there's not a whole lot of sun over here, but I have got borage also growing over here, which is fine because these guys are awesome. I like the fact that they self-seed and I don't have to worry about them. I have got a whole bunch of radishes and stuff over here that I'm mostly growing for their greens so I can give to the chickens whenever I feel like the chickens haven't done crazy dumb things. Everybody seems to be doing not crazy dumb things right now. And then I've got what I think is the loofah right there and right there. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure because these guys have been moved around. Since I do not have my greenhouse this year where I can put them during storms, I've had to run them in and out of the house and have already had to harden them off twice, I think, because it stormed for several days in a row, and when I brought them back out, they were not accustomed to the light anymore, so I had to reaccustom them to the light, which is very, very irritating and has resulted in quite a few plants failing. All right, then over here, this is all drama. It's all drama. We'll get to that. Okay. Over here on this side of this tree, yes. Over here on this side of the bed, we have got another snapdragon. I have got these guys everywhere. I have got one char that I allowed to stay in. I'm just kind of curious about what the char looks like when it blooms. I really want to see what all of these plants look like when they finally bloom so I know what to look for. And then I have got what's left of a kale. I'm surprised it's growing back as well as it is, especially since the char is just like flopping over the top of it, but I'm just going to let this stuff go. As you can see, this area is shaded and stays shaded until probably 12-ish o'clock. And this is my artichoke. I was really hoping we were going to get a bloom out of it this year. I don't see that happening. I don't know if you have to wait a couple of years before you see a bloom out of one of them, but this is the only one that survived our winter. I have got my butterfly weed. I have got what was a whole bunch of celery. And I didn't realize that celery, like, man spreads whenever it's going to seed, but apparently that's the thing that it does. It's either that or the storm got at it really good. I don't know. We got some little bitty blooms. Like I said, I'm just curious about the life cycle of some of these plants, and I have nothing else for this bed right here that is currently growing, so I'm just going to let them continue to go to seed and see what happens. I do have some turmeric planted. I haven't actually seen it sprout, so I have no idea what to expect on whether or not it will actually eventually come up. I have seen some budding right here. But from what I gather, you're actually supposed to sprout them like you would any spring flower or whatever like that. You would plant it out, allow it to produce a little bit of green, and then put it into your bed to get it established. Well, I didn't do that. I just put them in the ground. If this doesn't actually work to produce anything, which it still kind of looks like it might, I don't know, then next year I will be trying that. So this will be like my second year failing at ginger or turmeric. But it's fine. You find 200 ways to not grow a plant and 1 or 2 ways that you can grow a plant. And then around to here is supposed to be my loofah. I don't think that's a loofah. I think that's a cantaloupe. So I think I've got a cantaloupe, and 2 loofahs. Not exactly where I was wanting things or what I was wanting things for, but I mean, it works. And then of course I've got a hidden borage over here. The hidden borage, the sneaky borage. And then I had some moonflower that was growing right here. Due to my beds having an overabundance of roly-polies, which that's kind of a side effect of using the wood mulch that I do everywhere, there's roly-polies everywhere. But technically, even if it wasn't wood mulch, if I just did leaves or something like that, or hay, I tried hay my first year. When I used hay, I also had a roly-poly problem. So it wouldn't matter what I did, roly-polies are going to be a thing. They ate the moonflowers, so that's a thing that happened. That's a lot. My battery is in the red right now. That is ridiculous. There is so much garden. I don't know if you guys noticed, but halfway through the tour, I actually turned the water on to allow it to go ahead and do its watering. And so far, all of the beds seem to be working. I do have the potato bed turned off right now, and I think after this watering, the onion bed is probably going to get turned off, the one that's already starting to flop over. I'm going to keep watering the one that nobody has flopped over on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for our May tour. I do apologize that there wasn't another tour this month. Like I said, I lost the footage whenever the hard drive crashed. But we have a new hard drive. Things are a-okay. The garden is, for the most part, a-okay. There's a couple of wins, a couple of losses, but that's an every kind of season thing. You never know what you're going to get for each season. There are the good, the bad, and the plentiful. I will see you next time. You have a wonderful day or night, and you stay shiny. Bye.